So we're going to look at some quick fixes that we take into account when we're assessing a squat and make sure that people are moving the right way. So one of the first things we want to get out of the way is make sure that if there's been lingering knee pain or things of that nature, that you've got it cleared by your doctor, that they've ruled out anything as far as meniscus tears or tears in general, things that could be a real problem if you're getting into a resistance training program. But if everything's been cleared and things seem to still be giving you kind of some general pain when you sit down, stand up, get down off the floor, we can look at some things to be able to fix the squat and make sure that she's moving in the right way. So what we're going to look at right here is, first thing I look for when I'm working with a client is how does it look when they're standing up. So what I'll see a lot of the time is when they're complaining about knee pain is I have them just sit down, stand up like they would in a chair. What we often see, I'm going to have her stand up right here with the improper form, is she's loading onto her toes, forcing a lot of that pressure forward into her knee. So you see right there how much kind of torque goes onto that as the lower and the upper kind of push forward on that kneecap. So to be able to fix that, what we want to do is we're first going to have her position her feet a little bit out this way so that they're flat on the floor. And when she distributes the weight into her feet as she stands up, we want her to be putting the pressure into her heel to about right here in her foot without loading this front part right there. So what we're going to do is as she does this, I want her to engage in her hips while keeping her shoulders fairly tall, and they're going to try to raise at the same time. So let's go ahead and we'll stand up and we'll sit back. And we can see she's doing a lot of work pushing through the hips, which activate in the glutes, and the quads work kind of secondary. We're going to build upon the concepts we covered in part one of this video, and we're going to look at transferring it from the box squat variation into something that's a little more freestanding. So in order to do this, even if people feel pretty comfortable with squatting, this is a good way to warm up as well. What I like to have them do is be able to hold on to something to be able to create balance on here. And we've now taken the seat out of the equation, and we're going to look to apply all of the same concepts we had in the first part of this video by getting her to load back as she sits into a squat motion. And she's going to push through her hips as she stands back up, and we'll look at another one. And all the meanwhile trying to take pressure off of that knee and make sure the majority of the weight and force is loaded through her hips and glutes. We're going to tie everything together now and look at transferring the box squat and the balanced squat into now a body weight squat. This is going to be the foundation for all types of squat movements that we look at. So I'm going to have Lisa demonstrate here a few body weight squats as a set. And we're going to look at some different cues that we want to keep aware of as you're moving through these. So some of the things we see here is what the shin is doing relative to the torso. In an ideal world, we'd like to see this line and this line are parallel to each other. Now sometimes that can be thrown off balance, and I'm going to stop right here. And reasons that can be is typically tight hip flexors, tight ankles. You may have heard the cue, don't let the knee pass in front of the toe. There is some truth behind that. If someone is lacking ankle flexibility, they don't have much mobility, that will make their body weight shift forward. So sometimes being able to pull the knee behind the toe is a good cue to be able to get things to load backward. But the way you can test to see if the ankles are a problem is if we are to slip these plates underneath her heels right here. So I'm going to have you lift right here, and we're going to lift right here. Now if we see the quality of her squat improve with this modification in here, we're going to look at that right here. We'll do a few squats, and you can see that angle drastically improve. It tells us that there is a little bit of ankle flexibility and mobility lacking. So that would be an area we would address in her program to make sure she frees that up before continuing to get into heavier squats. We'll talk about one more type of imbalance that could be occurring that may be throwing off someone's squat, and that's going to be what's going on in the core area. So if we see that when she's squatting, if her core is starting to drop forward a lot and she's not able to maintain that balance up here, that could indicate that we need to do a lot more core strengthening in her program. So the way we would test for that is if I give her a weight for her to squat with, and she's going to hold this outstretched right here. And if this seems to drastically improve her squat, we're going to look at a squat right here. And it looks really good now. And rest. So that tells us that in this case, her core stability may need a little bit of work, and we would then address that a lot in her program before progressing her out to heavier types of squat type movements.